From Washington, this is VOA News. Russia is displeased at a U.S. proposal for Ukraine. A new Nigeria candidate foresees a corrupt election. I'm Vincent Bruce reporting from Washington. Russia is voicing outrage at new U.S. legislation on Ukraine, saying a bill authorizing military aid to Kyiv and deeper sanctions against Moscow will cause deep regret and, quote, destroy chances for any joint efforts to end the Ukraine crisis. Friday, the Russian Foreign Ministry issued a statement saying the so-called Ukraine Freedom Support Act had an openly confrontational nature and amounted to blackmail. Muhammadu Buhari, the presidential candidate for Nigeria's main opposition party, says he expects to see fraud in the upcoming elections in February.
This will be Muhammadu Buhari's fourth run at the presidency since Nigeria returned to democracy in 1999. But this time he'll be running under the banner of the All Progressives Congress, a new coalition of the country's leading opposition parties. Buhari triumphed over four other candidates, including a former vice president and the governor of the northern Kano state, to win the APC's endorsement in primaries that finished on Thursday. Nigeria goes to the polls to vote for president on February 14, 2015. Chris Stein for VOA News, Abuja.
There are now two vice presidents in Zimbabwe. Emerson Mnangagwa was sworn in. Also, the second vice president, Felekesela Moko, was sworn in on Friday. The two men were appointed this week after President Mugabe fired his longtime deputy. More on each of these stories at our website, voanews.com, 24 hours a day. This is VOA News. U.S. President Barack Obama is welcoming passage by the House of Representatives of a $1.1 trillion spending bill that funds most of the federal government through September 2015. Lawmakers from both the Republican and Democratic parties and President Obama urged passage, even though conservative Republicans were angry over what was not in the bill and liberal Democrats were upset over what was included. Mr. Obama spoke Friday at the White House.
This, by definition, was a compromise bill. This is what's produced when you have the divided government that the American people voted for.
Developing nations at the Climate Change Conference in Lima, Peru, have been pushing a long-time view that wealthy countries should bear a bigger burden of cutting emissions that create global warming. Negotiators from 200 countries continued their meetings Friday. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said Thursday more than half of the global emissions causing the Earth to warm are coming from developing nations. Kerry said it is imperative that they also act. U.S. President Obama and Central Intelligence Chief John Brennan are aligned in their views on so-called enhanced interrogation techniques. White House spokesman Josh Earnest addressed reporters on Friday, highlighting CIA Chief Brennan's statement in support of President Obama.
The director was very clear yesterday in saying that he quote, fully supports the president's decision to prohibit the use of enhanced interrogation techniques.
That despite Brennan's refusal to call the methods torture. The UN Children's Fund says hundreds of thousands of children in conflict-ridden South Sudan are at risk as millions are displaced. As Lisa Schlein reports from Geneva, the joyous celebrations which accompanied the birth of this new nation 3 years ago have long since evaporated.
The UN reports the fighting between the government and rebels that erupted 1 year ago has displaced 1.5 million South Sudanese within the country. Nearly half of them are children. To respond to this crisis, UNICEF has scaled up its nutrition programs, providing therapeutic care to more than 80,000 severely acutely malnourished children. The agency and partners have run several vaccination campaigns. While all this aid is crucial for survival, UNICEF says what the people of South Sudan most need is peace. Lisa Schlein for VOA News, Geneva.
Stocks in the U.S., the Dow Jones dropped 300 points, down 1.79% overall. S&P 500 and the NASDAQ also were down. S&P 500 lost 33 points and the NASDAQ lost 54.56 points on Friday. More at voanews.com. I'm Vincent Bruce in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.